everybody, and my name is Narendra Kumar, and we are from NRK Academy. And today I have come to introduce probably one of the widely acknowledged, one of the greatest authors the English language has ever produced, William Shakespeare. Now Shakespeare, the way I look at him, was a man of multiple talents, multiple. He was able to give wonderful quotations. He was able to entertain an audience. He was able to act. And I feel his native genius flowered because of circumstances of his life. You know, when a mind is pressured and is under stress to deliver, the delivery brings out the genius within. And that's what happened to Shakespeare. If you look at his life, he was born in 1564, he was baptized. I mean, 1526, April 26th, 1564, he was baptized. April 23rd, he was born. And he had many siblings, brothers and sisters. And from, actually, very little is known, unfortunately, very little is known of Shakespeare. What we know of Shakespeare is because of the books he wrote and also because of certain church records. But normally we don't know much about Shakespeare. The people have tried to unravel his life. So Shakespeare also remains an enigma. You have to indirectly find out what he was and why he was able to write such extraordinary pieces of literature and drama. So in 1585 he married Anne Hathaway. 1582, and he had a daughter, and later he had twins, Susanna. The daughter, he was very fond of Susanna, and then he shifted over from Stratford, which was very near to London. He came to London, and he joined as a person who was taking care of horses in a drama company. And slowly, by the 1590s, he established himself as an actor, producer, director, playwright. And that was a time, there are three phases of Shakespeare. The first phase was when he came out with comedies. What is the kind of person who is able to see and write beautiful comedies? There are two aspects to Shakespeare. One, Shakespeare the writer. The other, Shakespeare the man who was pressured to entertain. Third, Shakespeare who had to cater to a multiple audience. See the three parts, the way I look at it. One, he had to write stories, plays. Second, he had to entertain. So to write plays, he needed to have an insight, an understanding of human nature, very deep understanding. The second part was, he had to use that understanding to entertain an audience. He had to do that. And the third part was that he had to cater to the most common people, elite people, upper middle class, the whole range, because people used to come to his theatre to watch his dramas, and he had to make a living out of that. And it's very interesting that Shakespeare became very rich. He had huge estates. His house was supposed to be the second biggest house where he was at the peak of his career. So the three aspects started with comedy. He wrote many comedies, and the starting comedies were first he started with histories, actually, because that was available literature then. He wrote about Richard IV and Henry VI, Henry V, and then he went into comedies. And in the comedies, he came out with beautiful comedies: Midsummer Night's Dream, then Merchant of Venice, Much Ado about Nothing, As You Like It, Twelfth Night, and these are the comedies he came up with. As a man progresses in life, the comedies become tragedies. The same comedies become tragedies. And he came out with very deep tragedies after that. And those tragedies were the haunting Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, Macbeth. Especially Hamlet was very, very tragic and very deeply, hauntingly tragic. And then finally, there was a reconciliation. And these tragedies ended in tragedy. There's still tragicomedies. So you can see clearly. He started in his youth as histories generally, and then went on to comedies. Then later he came out with very deep tragedies. He was the thick of life, trying to portray human beings. And then finally he came out with tragic comedies. One part of it knew that the comedy part and the tragic, the combined, and there was forgiveness, there was reconciliation at the end in the final novels. And the final novels were the Cymbeline and Winter's Tale, Tempest. So these were the great, very great works of art, works of drama. And one more thing about Shakespeare is, he has been adapted to every single culture, everywhere. You see anywhere, you see Shakespeare being performed. He became so popular. If you look at his works carefully, they are a combination of art and entertainment. That's what I think. He took the material. See, as an artist, as a creator of art, you have to have your material. What was his material? His material was not some grandiose emotion. No, Shakespeare was not like that. Shakespeare looked at human beings as ordinary human beings with ordinary feelings, with ordinary emotions, like what we call typically envy, jealousy, fear, love, attachment, destructiveness, self-destructiveness also played a very big part in Shakespeare's dramas. These are all suicidal tendencies, self-destructiveness, not knowing yourself, not knowing, being foolish. Now, let us look at a man, a genius, extraordinary powers of observation, looking at the world around him, looking at history also. What did he observe? What would he observe? What would anybody observe really? He will observe the foolishness of people. That is a comedy. A foolishness is always a comedy. What is a comedy? Comedy is about, silly things. Silliness is a kind of comedy. And then if you show it, like, you show the hypocrisy and all that, and people laugh, and people get the kick out of that, laughing at the ludicrous, laughing at the foolishness of people, laughing at the exposing of the foolishness of the people. So that was one part. There is a material. I'm talking only the material now. So material was the foolishness of human beings, which gave a comic edge to the writer in Shakespeare. Then, when the foolishness leads to, foolishness doesn't remain as foolishness. Otherwise, it will not be foolishness. Something is foolish because it is leading to some danger, some tragedy. So then later it became very tragic. The very comedy became the tragedy. And finally there was a reconciliation. He got a kind of balance of life, and there was a tragic comedy. So this is how I understand Shakespeare. But this is only one part of him. This is not the only part of him. In fact, I would say there are many people who would have a perspective like that. Many people. They'll see the comedy of life. To see the comedy of life and to entertain an audience through a story, the comedy of life or the tragedy of life or the tragicomedy of life is no joke. And that's where the genius of Shakespeare comes. I think partly because of circumstances also, because he had to entertain an audience, the whole audience, from bottom to top. He had to entertain them. So, and he had to earn money through that. And he had that passion of an artist to communicate in an interesting way. It became his technical task to create comedies. And that requires the highest genius to create plot twists. Twists of life are all around you. But to take out that, focus it like a laser and on the highlights of a man's life, and show it in history, show it with common people, show it between lovers, show everything, the self-destructive nature of people, the lack of understanding of people, the mistakes people make, the flaws. Most of the characters of Shakespeare are flawed, like ordinary people, but they have very wonderful plots. The story is, you can't remain silent, it's going on and on and on. And everything next, what next? What next is, what will this guy do? Such a person will do such a thing, and he will go to, like all of us, our lives also are very bumpy rides. If somebody could write a novel of each of our lives, it would be something like a Shakespearean drama. I really feel like that. So Shakespeare wrote about ordinary human beings. He wrote some wonderful novels. And now we come to the third aspect of Shakespeare. Third aspect, the language. Many people have said that Shakespeare used common language. Even his metric system, he broke free from the earlier tradition, and he gave less rhyming and more natural dialogues, though he was stuck at that time. So his the metrical system was also much less rhyme based, and it was more natural. And this is technical part. What about the writing part? So many quotations. Brevity is the soul of wit. And much ado about nothing. A fool thinks he is wise, and the wise knows he is a fool. Look at the quotations. He came up with some remarkable word combinations. The quotations, the dialogues, the way the people cry, express their agony. It's all very direct. The wisdom of life, of people around him, the milieu, the context, human nature, everything was given a universal feel and look and entertainment and everything. And that is the reason why Shakespeare is Shakespeare. Okay, he became a legend. And especially the later part, recent part, people began to recognize that this guy, that time the public recognized it. It took time for intellectuals, as usual, to recognize that this man was an extraordinary genius. So, why should we read Shakespeare? I don't know. If you don't read Shakespeare, you will miss out on language. You will miss out on entertainment, which is the reason why we watch anything. But entertainment in which you see the whole play, and when you look at your neighbor, you have seen him. You will get new eyes to see people. You will get the mind of Shakespeare, the way he looked at things. You will also laugh. You will also cry. Tragedy, comedies. Thank you so much. This is Narendra Kumar, and we are from NRK Academy. Thank you so much.